Welcome, dear friends. Today I will share with you a compelling story of love, loss, and unbreakable family bonds that overcome even the darkest of circumstances. Enjoy the story. The piercing cries of seagulls and the raucous cawing of crows echoed across the vast expanse of the city dump. Rachel stirred from her slumber, her makeshift shelter crafted from discarded cardboard and tattered tarps, offering little protection from the relentless cacophony. She rubbed her eyes, the first light of dawn casting a pale glow across the sea of trash and debris that stretched out before her. As she sat up, Rachel's mind drifted to the blank void that was her past. She had no memory of who she was or where she came from. Her life, as far as she knew, began a few years ago when Kendra, a former inmate and now her closest friend, found her lying in a pool of her own blood, beaten within an inch of her life. Kendra had nursed Rachel back to health, her skills as a surgeon, honed before her incarceration, proving invaluable. But even as Rachel's physical wounds healed, the scars on her mind remained. Kendra had urged her to lay low, convinced that whoever had left her for dead would come looking to finish the job. Rachel sighed, pushing the thoughts of her enigmatic past aside. She had a life to live, even if it was one scraped together from the discards of society. With a groan, she hauled herself to her feet, ready to face another day in the kingdom of the forgotten. The streets of the nearby residential area bustled with activity as Rachel wove her way through the crowd, her keen eyes scanning for any opportunity. She had learned early on that survival in this harsh world often meant taking what you needed, and today, she needed information. Rachel's gaze landed on a telephone pole plastered with flyers and notices. She skimmed through them, her heart racing with excitement as she imagined the events they advertised. Charity galas, business conferences, weddings, each one a potential goldmine for a skilled pickpocket like herself. As she studied the notices, Rachel couldn't help but critique the event planning. "They're serving shrimp cocktail at a networking event? Amateurs," she muttered under her breath. In another life, she mused, she might have been an event organizer herself. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since the previous day. Spotting an ice cream cart, Rachel deftly swiped a cone from a distracted customer, savoring the sweet, creamy treat as she continued her reconnaissance mission. A discarded newspaper caught her eye, and Rachel snatched it up eagerly. She pored over the pages, absorbing every scrap of information that might prove useful. And there, nestled among the articles, was an advertisement that made her heart skip a beat. "Fall Festival," it read, promising a day of autumn-themed games, food, and entertainment. Rachel grinned, tucking the newspaper under her arm. This was exactly what she had been looking for. "A fall festival?" Kendra asked skeptically, her brow furrowed as she studied the advertisement Rachel had thrust into her hands. "You want us to go pickpocketing at a family event?" "Think about it, Kendra," Rachel urged, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "All those people, their guard down, their pockets ripe for the picking. It's the perfect opportunity." Kendra sighed, running a hand through her short graying hair. "I don't know, Rach. It seems risky. What if we get caught?" "We won't," Rachel assured her, her voice brimming with confidence. "We're the best in the business, remember? And besides, we need this. Winter's coming, and we can't rely on the dump to provide for us forever." Kendra's resolve wavered, and finally, she nodded. "All right, fine. But we do this my way, understand? We scope out the place first, identify our targets, and then get in and out as quickly as possible." Rachel grinned, throwing her arms around Kendra in a fierce hug. "You're the best, you know that?" Kendra chuckled, patting Rachel's back. Yeah. Don't go getting all sentimental on me now. We've got work to do." The morning of the fall festival dawned crisp and clear, the air tinged with the scent of wood smoke and cinnamon. Rachel and Kendra emerged from their shelter, their normally ragged appearance transformed by the stolen clothes and makeup they had carefully applied. Rachel twirled in her knee-length wool coat, relishing the feel of the luxurious fabric against her skin. Beside her, Kendra looked equally resplendent, in a tailored pantsuit, her face artfully made up to conceal the hardships of her life on the streets. We look good, Rachel grinned, linking her arm with Kendra's. No one will ever suspect we're not supposed to be there. Kendra nodded, her expression grim. Just remember the plan. We mingle, we observe, and then we strike when the time is right. And if anything goes wrong, we meet back here. Understood? Understood, Rachel confirmed, her heart racing with anticipation. Let's do this. With a final nod, the two women set off towards the festival grounds, their disguises allowing them to blend seamlessly into the crowd of revelers. The festival was in full swing by the time Rachel and Kendra arrived, the air filled with the sounds of laughter and the tantalizing aromas of festival food. They wandered through the stalls, their eyes peeled for likely targets, their hands itching to relieve the unsuspecting crowd of their valuables. Rachel's gaze landed on a man in his mid-30s, his expensive suit and the bulge of his wallet in his back pocket marking him as a prime candidate. She nudged Kendra, tilting her head towards the man. What do you think? Easy pickings? Kendra studied the man for a moment, then nodded. Looks like it, but be careful, Rach. He's got that look about him, like he's not someone you want to mess with. Rachel grinned, a thrill of excitement coursing through her veins. Don't worry about me. I've got this. With a final wink at Kendra, Rachel made her way towards the man, her steps casual and unhurried. As she drew near, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something strangely familiar about him, as if she had seen his face before. But that was impossible, she reminded herself. She had no memory of her life before the dump. Pushing the unsettling thought aside, Rachel focused on the task at hand. With a deft flick of her wrist, she lifted the wallet from the man's pocket, her fingers closing around the soft, supple leather. She was just about to turn away when the man's hand clamped down on her wrist, his grip like iron. Rachel's heart leaped into her throat, panic surging through her veins. She looked up, meeting the man's piercing blue eyes, and felt a jolt of recognition. I know you, she whispered, her voice trembling. How do I know you? The man's expression softened, his grip on her wrist loosening. Lena? He breathed, his voice thick with emotion. Is it really you? Rachel wrenched her arm free, stumbling backward. I'm not Lena, she insisted, her voice rising in panic. I'm Rachel. I don't know you. With a final, terrified glance, she turned and fled, the man's voice ringing in her ears as he called after her. Rachel burst into the shelter, her chest heaving with exertion, the stolen wallet clutched tightly to her chest. Kendra looked up from the small fire she had built, her expression shifting from annoyance to concern as she took in Rachel's wild-eyed appearance. What happened? She demanded, rising to her feet. Did someone see you? Rachel shook her head, sinking to the ground beside the fire. No, it's not that. It's... Kendra, I think I knew him. The man I stole from. He called me Lena. Kendra's eyes widened, her face draining of color. That's impossible. You don't know anyone from before. We've been over this. Rachel held out the wallet, her hands shaking. Look inside. There's a picture. Kendra took the wallet gingerly, as if it might explode. She opened it, her breath catching in her throat as she pulled out a small, worn photograph. It showed the man from the festival, his arm around a smiling woman who was cradling a baby in her arms, a woman who looked exactly like Rachel. Kendra looked up, her eyes meeting Rachel's. This is you, she whispered, her voice trembling. You have a family, Rach, a husband, a baby. Rachel shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, that's not possible. I can't. She broke off, sobbing, as Kendra gathered her into her arms, holding her tightly as she wept for the life she had lost and the memories that remained just out of reach. The sound of heavy footsteps crunching on the debris outside the shelter jolted Rachel and Kendra from their shock. They looked up to see Hank, the self-proclaimed leader of the homeless community, looming in the doorway, his face twisted in anger. Well, 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 he sneered, his eyes landing on the open wallet in Kendra's hands. What have we here? Stealing from the festival, were we? Rachel leaped to her feet, her fists clenched at her sides. It's none of your business, Hank. We don't answer to you. Hank's face darkened, his lips curling into a snarl. Everything that happens in this dump is my business, girlie, And you know the rules. Any score, you bring to me. I decide who gets what. Kendra stood beside Rachel, her expression hard. The rules are different this time, Hank. This wallet, it belongs to Rachel. It's a part of her past. Hank barked out a harsh laugh. Her past? What past? She's got no past, no future. Just like the rest of us. Now hand over the wallet, or things are going to get ugly. Rachel shook her head, clutching the wallet tighter. No, I won't let you take this from me. It's all I have left. Hank's face contorted with rage, and before Rachel could react, he lashed out, his fist connecting with the side of her head in a brutal blow. She crumpled to the ground, stars exploding behind her eyes as pain lanced through her skull. Dimly, she heard Kendra shouting, saw her friend launch herself at Hank in a furious attack. "Run, Rachel!" Kendra screamed, grappling with the much larger man. "Get out of here!" Rachel staggered to her feet, clutching the wallet to her chest. With a final, anguished look at Kendra, she turned and fled, stumbling through the mountains of trash as she ran blindly towards the city, towards the only clue she had to her forgotten life. Rachel wandered through the festival grounds, her head throbbing, her heart heavy with despair. She had searched for hours, hoping to catch a glimpse of the man whose wallet she had stolen, the man who seemed to hold the key to her past, but he was nowhere to be found. Exhausted and heartsick, Rachel sank down onto the steps of a shuttered storefront, burying her face in her hands as the tears began to flow. She had been so close to finding out who she really was, and now, it seemed, she had lost her only chance. "Excuse me, miss? Are you okay?" The voice was young, high-pitched with concern. Rachel looked up to see a little boy standing before her, his bright blue eyes wide with worry. He looked to be about 5 or 6 years old, with a mop of sandy hair and a sprinkling of freckles across his nose. Rachel hastily wiped away her tears, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just a little tired, that's all." The boy cocked his head, studying her intently. "You look like the lady in my daddy's picture," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "The one he keeps in his wallet." Rachel's heart stuttered in her chest, her eyes widening. "Your daddy? What's your daddy's name?" The boy grinned, his small chest puffing up with pride. Nick Harper. He's the best daddy in the whole world." Rachel felt as if the ground had dropped out from beneath her feet. Nick Harper. The man from the festival. The man who had called her Lena. She reached out, grasping the boy's small hand in her own. "Can you take me to your daddy, sweetheart? I think he might be looking for me." The boy nodded eagerly, tugging her to her feet. "Come on, miss. He's just over there, by the cotton candy stand." Rachel allowed herself to be led through the crowd, her heart pounding, her palms slick with sweat. And then suddenly, there he was. Nick Harper, the man from the photograph, the man who held the key to her past. He looked up as they approached, his eyes widening in shock and disbelief. "Lena?" he whispered, his voice breaking. Is it really you?" Rachel felt the tears well up again, spilling down her cheeks. "I think so," she managed, her voice trembling. I don't remember, but I want to. I want to remember everything." Nick reached out, pulling her into a fierce embrace, his own tears mingling with hers. "I thought I'd lost you," he murmured, his voice muffled against her hair. "I never stopped looking, never stopped hoping." They clung to each other, the little boy watching in confusion and delight as the pieces of Rachel's shattered life slowly began to fall back into place. The house was large and comfortable, with a wide front porch and a neatly trimmed lawn. Rachel stood on the threshold, her heart in her throat, as Nick unlocked the door and ushered her inside. "Welcome home, Lena," he said softly, his hand resting on the small of her back. "Welcome home." Rachel stepped into the foyer, her eyes wide with wonder. Everything was so familiar, and yet so strange. The photographs on the walls, the worn armchair in the corner, the scent of vanilla and cinnamon that permeated the air. It was like walking into a dream, a half-remembered fantasy come to life. Nick led her into the living room, where a plump, matronly woman sat on the sofa, bouncing the little boy on her knee. She looked up as they entered, her face breaking into a wide smile. "Oh, Lena," she breathed, tears springing to her eyes. "I knew you'd come back to us. I just knew it." Rachel felt a lump rise in her throat, her heart swelling with emotion. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. I don't remember." The woman stood, crossing the room to gather Rachel into a warm, motherly embrace. "It's all right, sweetheart. We'll help you remember. We'll help you find your way back to us." Nick nodded, his own eyes shining with tears. "I've already called Dr. Simmons. He's the best neurologist in the city. He'll be here first thing in the morning to examine you, to see if we can't start piecing together what happened." Rachel felt a wave of gratitude wash over her heart aching with the love and support she had been missing for so long. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Nick pulled her close, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead. "I could never give up on you, Lena. You're my whole world. You and Max, you're everything to me." The little boy, Max, wriggled out of the woman's arms and ran to Rachel, throwing his small arms around her waist. "I missed you, Mommy," he mumbled, his face pressed against her stomach. "I missed you so much." Rachel felt the tears spill down her cheeks as she sank to her knees, gathering her son into her arms. "I missed you too, baby," she whispered, her heart overflowing with love. "I missed you too." The days passed in a blur of doctor's visits and therapy sessions, of long late-night conversations with Nick and Max, of slow, painful progress as the shattered pieces of Rachel's memory began to come together. She learned that she was Lena Harper, a successful party planner and devoted mother and wife. She learned of the life she had built with Nick, of the love they had for each other. As Lena's memories returned, so too did the dark truth of what had happened to her. She remembered the threats, the intimidation, the fear that had ruled her life in the days before her attack. "It was Miller," she told Nick one evening, her voice trembling with anger and fear. "He wanted me to use my business to launder money for him, to help him expand his criminal empire. When I refused, he said he'd make me pay." Nick's face darkened with rage, his fists clenching at his sides. "I'll kill him," he growled, his voice low and deadly. "I'll make him suffer for what he did to you." Lena shook her head, laying a calming hand on his arm. "No, Nick, we have to do this the right way. We have to go to the police, to make sure Miller pays for his crimes." Nick hesitated, then nodded, drawing her into a fierce embrace. "You're right, my love. We'll do this together, the right way. I won't let him hurt you again. I swear it." The police station was a hive of activity as Lena and Nick made their way inside, their hands clasped tightly together. They had spent hours going over Lena's story, making sure they had every detail right, every scrap of evidence they could muster. The detective who took their statement was a grizzled veteran, his face lined with years of hard-won experience. He listened intently as Lena recounted her ordeal, his eyes narrowing with each new revelation. "This Miller character, he's a real piece of work," he growled, his voice thick with disgust. "We've been trying to nail him for years, but he's always managed to slip through our fingers." Lena felt a flicker of fear, her heart sinking. "So there's nothing you can do?" she asked, her voice small and defeated. The detective shook his head, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Oh, we'll do something, all right. With your testimony, we've got enough to put Miller away for a long, long time. He's not going to hurt anyone else, not on my watch." Lena felt a wave of relief wash over her shoulders sagging as the weight of her burden finally began to lift. "Thank you, Detective. Thank you for believing me." The detective nodded, his eyes softening with compassion. "You're a brave woman, Mrs. Harper, a survivor. And I promise you, we'll make sure you get the justice you deserve." Lena stood outside the homeless encampment, her heart pounding in her chest. It had been months since she had last seen Kendra, months since she had left her old life behind. But she knew she could never truly move on until she made things right with the woman who had saved her life. Nick stood beside her, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. "Are you sure about this, Lena?" he asked softly, his eyes filled with concern. "We can always come back another day." Lena shook her head, steeling herself for what lay ahead. No, I need to do this now. I owe her so much, Nick. I can't just walk away. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, picking her way through the maze of makeshift shelters and discarded debris. Kendra, she called out, her voice echoing through the eerie stillness. Kendra, are you here? For a long moment, there was no response. Then slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows, her face gaunt and haggard, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Rachel? Kendra whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Is that really you? Lena felt the tears well up in her eyes, a lump rising in her throat. It's me, Kendra, but my real name is Lena. Lena Harper. Kendra's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks as she stumbled forward, throwing her arms around Lena in a fierce, desperate embrace. I thought I'd lost you, she sobbed, her body shaking with the force of her emotions. I thought I'd never see you again. Lena held her tightly, her own tears mingling with Kendra's. I'm here, Kendra. I'm here and I'm never leaving you again. I promise. Kendra pulled back, her face a mask of confusion and fear. But what about Hank? What about the rules? If he finds out you're here? Lena shook her head, a fierce determination settling over her features. Hank can't hurt us anymore, Kendra. None of them can. Because you're coming with me. You're going to be a part of my family, just like you always should have been. Kendra's eyes widened, hope and disbelief warring in their depths. You want me to come with you? To live with you and your family? Lena nodded, a smile breaking through her tears. I don't want to just live with you, Kendra. I want you to be my sister, my real, true sister, the way it always should have been. Kendra let out a choked sob, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks as she nodded, her face splitting into a watery smile. I'd like that, Lena. I'd like that more than anything in the world. The sun shone down on the Harper house, bathing the wide front porch in a warm, golden glow. Lena sat in the porch swing. Max nestled in her lap, his small face peaceful in sleep. Beside her, Nick and Kendra chatted quietly, their laughter mingling with the gentle rustling of the leaves in the breeze. Lena felt a deep, unshakable sense of contentment settle over her, a feeling of rightness and belonging that she had never known before. She had fought so hard to find her way back to this moment, to the family she had lost, and the love she had never known she needed. And now, here she was, surrounded by the people she loved most in the world, her heart full to bursting with the joy and gratitude of it all. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, that the scars of her past would never truly fade. But with Nick and Kendra and Max by her side, she knew she could face anything, overcome anything. She was home, truly home at last, and she knew with a bone-deep certainty that she would never, ever let it go again.